let us welcome our brother Michael with his sharing the title Candle in the Night. To you, brother Michael. We look forward.
No, so thank you very much once again for this opportunity that I'd be able to share with our fellow brothers and sisters. My dear beloved Master Cheng, so our dear Dharma Masters of the abode, so to our brothers and sisters, a very pleasant good morning to everyone. So it is indeed a blessing to be here once again today to share with you. Hopefully this would bring more or perhaps some inspiration for everyone during this time. So in fact, I was just given an opportunity to share back there during the morning session in the abode. So allow me to share a little of this experience. In reality, I'm really blessed. I'm considered really blessed and so happy that I was able to go back to be with our beloved master for the Chinese New Year. So it is quite interesting because most people knew it's quite difficult to travel nowadays with all these restrictions, travel permits that you need. Well, of course, when you go to Taiwan or wherever else, basically you'd have to go through a certain days of quarantine. Then when you came back, so another few days of quarantine. So in fact, so there's a lot of hassles that we can say, but somehow for me during this time, I really took this effort because I really want to say, take this moment to say thank you to our dear master, to say really kanan. So because I really treat our master as the guiding light for our lives. So if not because of our masters, so say for example, the Philippines has been through a lot of difficulties, especially last year. Well, of course, it's a global difficulties, global concerns that we're having this pandemic. And you get to hear from the masters mentioning for several times that he's been missing so much of our volunteers, especially from the overseas. And hopefully that after this pandemic, so we may now be able to remove the mask and it will be convenient for everyone to travel back to Taiwan and to get to see our masters. The master has been mentioning all these stuffs. So I believe starting last year, so even especially during this Chinese New Year season, that the master has been missing much of her disciples from different parts of the world. So I've been hearing this also, and of course, as we see when it comes to the pandemic last year, the master has been our guiding light to us, also inspiring us to move all around. And I remember master reminding us that the true holy mountain, when we speak about the Lingsan or the spiritual mountain that we mentioned in the sutra, the master said that the true holy mountain or the true spiritual mountain is not elsewhere, but it's deep within our hearts. And the moment you go deep in among mankind to serve the people who are very much in need. So the master has been worried that because of the pandemic, because of the lockdown, it will somehow affect our mentality and somehow lock us all down, especially our bodhisattva nature, our way of wanting to serve may be locked down. So that's why the master has been giving a lot of guidance and teachings ever since the lockdown started, reminding us that we have this mission that we have to make the most out of our time. I remember the talk of the master yesterday during the 15th of the Chinese Lunar Year, that the master has been reminding us also once again that time seems like a flowing water, never stops. So that the most that we can do is to make the most out of our time and make the most out of it and never indulge. So in our luxuries, in seeking pleasures, but make the most out of our time to be really diligent in seeking and growing among these dharma, among these teachings. So for this part, actually I traveled to Taiwan last January. It's January 14. So and it's just a very good timing that I had to be quarantined for 14 days as required by the government in Taiwan. Then after that, our Tzu Chi headquarters required everyone who's wanting to meet our master to have another 14 days. So basically, that's 28 days of self-management and quarantine before we get to go to the abode and meet our master. So it's a very positive timing because the moment I was free of my quarantine, it's February 11, which is I mean the New Year's Eve, one night before one day before the New Year. So that I'd be able to go to the abode and meet our master. So everyone was saying that, hey, you get such good timing. Have you been planning all these stuffs all along? But in reality, for my part, initially I'm planning to go to Taiwan by January 19. But so it just so happened that the flight I took have some changes, have some adjustments. So I am required to change my schedule since my dad has been reminding me, and since my family is already back there in Taiwan. So and they're reminding me to go earlier. So I made some adjustments to go by January 14 because by January 15, there's gonna be more restriction from the Taiwan government like that. So I moved my schedule to January 15. Never did I know that we were required to have, initially it's supposedly to be another 7 days, but later on they required another 14 days after the original lockdown from the government, another 14 days to meet the master. So it's basically a very positive timing. It seems something working above. Maybe the angels are working above to help me go through and weather through this time. Since I have this mindset set to wanting to really meet our masters. So maybe it's good timing. So, but somehow I'm back here in the Philippines right now. For me during this time, it's basically another 7 days lockdown. 7 days quarantine back here. But and people has been saying that you did a lot of sacrifice. But for me, I just want to say that my time back there is so worth it. Aside from being with my family, the most wonderful time for me is to be with our master, whom we've been longing to see so much for the whole year already. And basically, it's been 1 year that we haven't been back there. And somehow I considered myself so blessed compared to so many people because I believe so many people are longing to go back, but weren't given such opportunity. So, but somehow it's just this one part because I'm grateful for the master because especially during this time, aside from the pandemic that I mentioned a while ago, the Philippines was hit by two major typhoon disasters. So one which came in the early November 1 actually, and another came in the mid-November. So basically in less than 2 weeks time, we're hit by two major disasters, bringing heavy damages to the area. So during those time, I'd like to show some of these pictures because in the initial part of the disaster response, the master knew that it is a massive disaster mission needing aid from all over the world. The master mobilized, initiated a worldwide fund campaign to help the Philippines weather through these typhoon disasters. So the Jing abode led the world Tzu Chi worldwide to help raise funds for us. So, and I want to go through these pictures because these are some pictures that I requested them during those times because as I went through our disaster mission, I've been showing these pictures to our local people also, to local volunteers because I want them to know that we are backed up by international community led by our master herself. So, and the beautiful community of Tzu Chi, from Taai, from our TV station, from the different city hospitals led by our superintendents like that, and to all our missions, whether it is from the educations, charity, all networks of cities basically pull their resources together to help us. So a little background with regards to this typhoon is basically known as Typhoon Goni here in the Philippines. We call it Typhoon Rolly. So it is another major disasters that basically hit land. So which came by November 1. So it's one of considered one of the biggest typhoon also that hit the Philippines, as it packs in a 1 minute sustained wind of 315 kilometers per hour, very equivalent to Typhoon Hualien, which happened way back year 2013. No, so that's why I'd like to say that for so many global scale disaster, the master has been always here for us. And that's why for me, a little sacrifice going back to Taiwan is something worth it, as it's just our part wanting to say and express our gratitude to our beloved master for all the guidance and for all those wonderful teachings, allowing us to mobilize and inspiring us to move in the right direction. So later on, I'll be sharing more of basically what we did and what the impact of the master has been to us that led us to mobilize in such way. And that's what we're very much grateful for. And this is part, hopefully these are things that are worth sharing for the day. So after November 1, after that major disaster, Taiwan has been very much alert already. So I tried gathering information on the first day during that disaster, as it didn't basically hit here in Metro Manila. So we gathered some information, and for that whole day, I've been posting photos and pictures of disasters that we're gathering information through the social media sites like that. So it's quite surprising, but on the second day, it's November 2, the day after this destructive typhoon hit land, Master immediately summoned Tzu Chi Philippines to have a online meeting with our headquarters back in Taiwan. So to discuss the plan. On that part, the master came up with a conclusion to have their closing words, and it's quite surprising that the master has been advising us to come up with a plan already. Say, for example, though, how much we're intending to distribute, and secondly, starting gathering information about how extensive the damages are, how many families are basically affected. So I've been telling our master during those times that I told the master, says, Master, we haven't been through ocular visits yet. So these informations are very raw. So it may not be very exact, but somehow, why are we coming up with such plans already? So the master said, don't worry about that, at least, or it's basically an initial plan for us to have an idea. So little did I know, after we started embarking to our mission, moving over to this disaster mission, it seems to be a guiding light for us, because somehow we already knew how much capacity that we are willing to take on. So and it gave us a very clear directives on how we have to move through. So during those time, the master reminded us something that are quite very critical. One part is, after this typhoon, there are critical areas that are probably flooded, and the master said the most important thing is to do some clearing to really help the people get back from their get back on their normal lives. So and if we didn't start with the clearing, so after several days, the mud may stick and go stiff. So it might be more difficult to clean up next time. So with that in mind, so we started organizing ourselves. And during the closing, the master it's quite interesting, because the master started mentioning names, wanting to confirm if some key volunteers here in the Philippines are really present and are really preparing themselves to go around this mission. So the master started mentioning names, and of course the master mentioned me. Then I told the master during those times that I said, Master, if we due courtesy to our CEO groups, so to our executive groups, if they'd allow, so and gave me this chance, definitely I won't have a second word. So the master didn't wait for me to finish the whole stuff. Then the master told me one thing. Well, of course, you young people. So because during the pandemic, it's quite the master knew that traveling is quite restricted and quite limited, especially for people of 60 years old and above. They are not required. They are not somehow they're restricted to travel. So at the end, the master told me, "You young people, you definitely don't have a second word. So this is something that we ought to do." So with that advice, I knew that I'd have to move along, and the master has been giving me these directives that I really have to work along with our volunteers here to really hopefully to do something for this mission. So we started packing up, preparing ourselves. So and the most difficult part, because we'd have to go through all these travel permits. So it's basically a real hassle. No, so some of us traveled by land, no, so for more than 10 hours, but most of us, about 10 of us, no, so traveled by plane. So they have to go through rapid tests, no, so to make sure that we are COVID free. Then and finally on November 6th, no, so after this securing these permits, no, so our volunteers and staffs went over to Albay, the province of Albay, to start conducting our ocular visit and relief operations. A little background, no, so since way back 2006, we are already involved. We already have this kind of affinity with that area because of Typhoon Durian. We're able to help do some relief missions there, and at the end, we helped rebuild a certain structure of a school, which is Tabaco National High School. So it's quite interesting this time that we go there. So the first part, our first stop would have to be Tabaco National High School. So it's not for a tour, but because we are required to go to profiling to allow the local government knew that we are there already and there for the operation. So part of the requirements of the government also. But somehow we're quite satisfied as we went there. Our schools are very much intact. So and in fact, it's been years already, and we're quite happy with our school. But compared to many school buildings out there, this is basically the situation. So it's very much damaged, but somehow our school is intact. So during that day, so as based on the advice of the master, we only have one local commissioner, certified city commissioner in the local areas of Tabaco. So we already asked him to try help us identify areas that that need for clearing operation. So they immediately brought us to this barangay, which is Barangay Basud in the Tabaco city. So the area is quite devastated because it's near the river banks. So as the water overflow, the whole place is very messy. So and they seem to be waiting for time to pass by, but nobody's working around. It seems like the whole place is basically hopeless. So there are things that we went around. Another place is near the coastal area.
Sorry, Brother Michael. Can I interrupt you? Are you supposed to share a PowerPoint? Yeah, we can't see your PPT.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we can't see your PPT. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for reminding.
Yeah.
It's not out.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll have to go.
Now it's out. Yeah, okay.
It's out right now.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Thanks for reminding.
Yeah.
So these are the pictures I mentioned a while ago. So I just go through it fast. So as I mentioned, so this is Typhoon Goni, so which made landfall, and this is our meeting during November 2. So once again, thank you for reminding. So I missed out that part. I don't know. I'm not showing my PowerPoint.
No problem.
Thank you very much. So this is our travel on November 6th, and finally we are here. And so on the right part is our school, the beautiful school that actually it's one building that we built in the Tabaco National High School where we have our profiling. So most schools are like that. So most classrooms are like that, at least. And people are quite grateful because during those times, they said it's what really kept them safe because it serves as an evacuation areas. So at least the roof, so are intact also, and they're quite safe. This is Barangay Basud where we are there for the ocular visit, and as you can see, the whole place is really devastated. So this is another area in the coastal area, Barangay Taihi. So immediately after our visit on the first day, we already decided and coordinated with locals that we want to initiate a cash forward cleanup to really help these people. So and on the second day, November 7th, the second day we're here, we started with our first site, which lasted for 3 days. So at first, so most people doesn't believe us. Also, it's quite common with what we're doing. So because, but somehow in this area, there are some people who knew Tzu Chi already. So people managed to gather, and in time, we reached more than 1,000 people. So it's basically a small site only. So where we have started in this clearing operation. So the local Chinese has been of great help also in helping us identify and look for heavy machineries and dump trucks to help us pack up all these stuffs, help clean up all these stuffs. So on November 8th, so despite our limited manpower, so we opened up the second site, which is Taihi, for another clearing operation site. So the basic part is one thing that I'd like to go back to during our travel, because during the day when we traveled from Manila going to Albay, initially we identified because the master after our meeting with the master, our executive group here in Manila, our Tzu Chi so the CEOs and deputy CEOs came up with a meeting to discuss, and as I volunteered myself, they allowed me to take on this responsibility. So they allowed me also to pinpoint volunteers who may be of good help during this mission. So I identified another 8 individuals, mostly who are very much experienced during the Typhoon Ketsana and Typhoon Hualien. So most of them are either staffs or local Filipino volunteers who are supposedly who will be joining us during our travel to Albay province. But on that, before the flight, we'd have to go through COVID test. So it's kind of a rapid test, and 8 of them failed. So only 10 of us traveled. So during our travel, especially on the flight, something hit me, and I've been thinking so much about it, because the master seems to be reminding us during our meeting on November 2. The master said, bring these people out, make the most out of your strength to apply our strength. So it's something that I started reflecting. So on the first day, aside from initiating this clearing operation and going through all these government errands, gathering information like this, and we started getting involved in inviting people to join us. Well, during November 9, while ongoing cash forward cleanup is going through, we try to split ourselves up, aside from splitting ourselves into 2 areas, managing 2 areas. But just imagine we are only about 10 people. So 7 volunteers, I guess, and 3 staffs, managing 2 major areas of cash forward cleanup. And on November 9, so we're there to travel. We try to identify 10 towns for assessment to see if there are areas needing clearing, or if their areas are devastated, for us to do some relief missions. So we're only a handful of people. So and basically these areas, as you get to see in the map, those with red boxes are the areas that we travel. And at the center of the map is the Mayon volcano, the Mount Mayon. So it's basically a well-known tourist spot because of the perfect cone of the Mount Mayon. So it's a very scenic areas, very well known on here in the Philippines, and of course globally. So our relief mission is such a beautiful place, but basically because of this Mount Mayon, it's been bringing much disasters, and many of our relief missions are circled around the foot of the mountain. So we go through these areas to do some ocular visits to assess the damage. So and at the end, so we've been very much reflecting of the message that I mentioned a while ago, which is given to us by the master during our meeting last November 2. The master says, make use of their strength to apply ours and bring out the local people. So during that time, I've been thinking so much, because if we didn't start gathering these people, it seems impossible for us to finish and accomplish this mission, because the area has been so wide and the devastation is extensive. So right upon our arrival on November 6, that's November 6. So we tried coordinating with our local Chinese volunteer. So the only Tzu Chi commissioner that we have. So during that time, maybe it didn't really come to his mind yet. So how we plan to really run the whole thing. So he started gathering people, and during our first meeting, only 2 people came. So we said, just cancel the event. We start with our regular visit in the evening. Let's do another meeting. So the first meeting we have is on November 6th. About 20 people came, 20 plus people came. So we started mentioning about our intention. We said the kind objective of Tzu Chi, the kindness of our master, the compassion of the master, hoping to do this relief properly, and definitely the style of Tzu Chi. We have this principle that we'd have to uphold, because we do things directly, with priority and pragmatically, and hopefully we want to do it fast. So but we cannot do so if we only have a handful of people, and it's due to this pandemic. So if local people just imagine we came from Metro Manila, we'd have to go through all these travel permits, the hassles in travels, and these challenges. So all the way to really help the people locally. We really want to gather the strength of local people to join us because we can't do this alone. So little by little, this message came on them, and they started reflecting. So and somehow these people started gathering, and there's a certain group of Kabalikat Civicom, so who's from a Catholic group. So they started joining us, and after that meeting, we bring them to our relief mission. Starting with the cash assistance during after the cash for work cleanup every day. So the experience seems to be very positive on them. So and they started joining basically all of our events. And there are some doctors. So in fact, we have several Kima doctors, but we don't have much activities there. So Tzu Chi is not very much active. So with their limited manpower, Tzu Chi is not basically active in the Albay province. So but some of our Kima doctors who've been to Taiwan are very much inspired with Tzu Chi. They're very grateful to our master. So after our first meeting, one of these doctors, Dr. Malu, so she's been reflecting a lot. So and as she went back, she tried approaching their local parish priest, asking for his help. And the parish priest says, she says, Tzu Chi is looking for people. Where do I get these people? And the parish priest says, how do I know? So, but at the end of their discussion, something popped up from her mouth. And she says, maybe I can invite the Kabalikat Civicom, which is a local social civic organization. So later on, she shared with us, she says, it seems like the workings of Holy Spirit. So as they are Catholic, she says it's like the working of Holy Spirit, the guiding them to reflect on these things and maybe bring these people out. And at the end, all these people came along. So during our second meeting, I guess, so after the November 6th meeting, we set another meeting on November 8th. More than 40 plus of them, together with some local Chinese, there are about 60 plus of them joining us during that gathering. So it gave us a boost of our morale. So for us to move on, because they seems to be providing more strength for us to carry on our mission. So little did we know, as we try to finish our clearing operations on November 11, there's a report that another typhoon coming in. So we stopped our mission. So on that day, as everyone are still frightened and afraid that another typhoon might affect them, so we didn't move on to do some operations on that day. So it's a very good timing that the master invited us for a meeting, and it's also for us to update our master what we're up to. So it's a very beautiful discussion during that time. At the end, we gather ourselves around because we only have 6 people who are in blue and white, who are certified commissioners, and the most are four of them are our staff, and they are quite are considered rookie, but they're quite new to relief missions, and only these 6 people who are really experienced. So and we're seated all together for the master to see us that, and we told the master, even though we only have limited manpower, so we try to split ourselves up because we want to cover these disaster areas more widely, and hopefully in the shorter possible time, we'd be able to help these people, so who are very much devastated in this disaster. At the end, the master mentioned one word, but before that, one of our volunteers has been mentioning, because we already have planned to bring a busload of people. Now, for those who weren't able to come over during the ocular visit, I told them, those people from Manila, I told them that maybe you can join us during the relief mission. Now, so since the relief mission is about to start, they are already preparing themselves. So I tried to gather about 50 plus people, expecting that if ever some people failed during the COVID test, then at least we still have maybe about 40 to help us in our mission. So they're already in preparation. Then one of our volunteers that mentioned who are with us told me, he says, brother, maybe I can go back to Manila already, since you have an additional manpower coming over from Manila, and our local volunteers from the Albay province were already being organized. They start to gather along. So, but somehow, most likely, you'd have the capacity to do so already. During that time, I really can't reply because for me, these experienced people are what we really need so much, because we're only a handful of people, and every person count for me during those times. So it's just so happened at the end of that discussion with our master, the master came up with these words. It says, seeing with only a few people in front of her during this video conference, the master told us, for the survivors to be blessed or not, now lays in the hands of you few people. So it's the master's closing words. So after the master mentioned that, I look at one of that brother who mentioned that he's wanting to go home already because he still has to go through with his business like that. He looked at me in the eyes. No, so without saying anything, it seems that we get to understand what the master wants. No, so but somehow the burden seems to be so heavy on our shoulders. No, so the whole burden was or was entrusted to us to carry on with this mission. No, so we never hesitate. After that, we organize ourselves and move on for further engagement. So on November 12th, knowing that the typhoon didn't affect much. In fact, on that day, on November 11th, that's the only day that I go through watching TV. So to gather some information on the news, and I knew that the Manila has been. So that's why the message that the master mentioned during that day seems to be a prediction already, aside from entrusting the whole stuff to us. So it's like the master has been predicting things to happen. Little did we know, on that night when Typhoon Bamco, which is Typhoon Ulysses here in, as we know here in the Philippines, it affected Metro Manila so much, pouring in lots and lots of rain. So flooding the whole Marikina, San Mateo area, and then massive areas of Quezon City. And it's where most of our volunteers, basically all of our volunteers, will be coming over to help us. The whole busload of volunteers are basically and practically submerged during that time. So after that, it seems like the master already knew and has been telling us that our backup won't be able to come. After that report from the news, we knew it is impossible for them to come over. So we'd have to go through all this all by ourselves. And the most meaningful thing is basically to inspire and mobilize and motivate local people to join us, to allow them to be our strength, to be able for us to carry out our mission. So on November 12th, we move on. So to go to assess another areas in Kamalig, which is also in the foot of the Mount Mayon. So we get along with the government officials to gather information. So and of course to request support for heavy equipments. So one of these areas is where, if you get to see here in the pictures, is where the dike breaks. It's a flooded area. So the whole river came in through the community because of this damaged dike. So the area is really devastated, and we are there to do some cleanup. It's the first time to get to see. Actually, it's a very sad state, but somehow it's a blessing that Tzu Chi is there to be really able to help them. So we came up, of course, with the cash for work program also. So local people are paid about 300 pesos, 250, 300 pesos for labor works. But Tzu Chi offered to provide 1,000 pesos every day. So for them to gather people, as long as they want to help and to help themselves, to help their family, they can join. So little by little, people gathered also. So it's a sad state because in most cases, as we get to see people doing clearing operation, we often see that the mud or the mess inside are being cleared out of the house. But in this area, we get to see people packing their sand. They're shoveling sands. Many of these are sands. They are not mud. Because they came from the mud flow of Lahar from the Mount Mayon. They're shoveling it back to their house, and they told us once they have funds, they hope to erect their house higher. So because flooding like this has been happening so often, so and it's such a mess cleaning all this stuff out and coming back once again, maybe almost every year. So they said, instead of clearing this up, maybe let's just expect to bring our house higher. So, and we're grateful for the government to provide these heavy equipments during those times. So this is Brother James. So and his wife, Sister Loretta. So despite the restriction, they gave themselves to help in this clearing. So one wonderful thing that worth mentioning is the words of Master. That's what I'm saying. words of masters during our meeting may seems maybe just done in passing. But if you contemplate deeply, many words are basically a guiding light for us how to run this operation, because with only handful people of about 10, how can we do such massive operations? So it's a good thing that during the first day that we arrived, we already started inviting people to join us. From November 6th, our first meeting, another on November 8th, our second meeting, gathering 60 plus people, and on November 10th, it is a orientation, hopefully for them to register more people to join us. And after that November 12th ocular visit that we did, on November 13th, we have another gathering, and more than 130 plus people join us during that orientation, because we are preparing to out of the 10 areas, 10 municipalities that we assessed, we identified 6 major areas that needs relief assistance. So it's basically covering close to about 50 areas. And during those time, it's a massive areas that we need more volunteers to go through all these home visits to help us with all this stuff. So it's a good thing during November 13th, the effect came in as the master told us that we'd have to inspire the locals, motivate the locals to join us, to allow us to accomplish our mission. So these are some of valuable volunteers who helped us. This is Brother Joseph. So he dedicated most of his time in countless medical cases earlier time. She shared his experience as how blessings came back to him as he went through an emergency heart surgery back there in Taiwan. So this experience telling the people that as you do your good stuff, the more you help people, blessings comes back to us in return. Like the word that the term we mentioned, karma comes back to you. So when you do good, a good karma comes back to you. This is our words that we get to inspire our local people to dedicate themselves for their local community to help their fellow people. So this is Brother Ray, who's from Manila also, but he was a native born from Albay, who also joined us during those missions. He's been very helpful also, because these are some of the leaders as we, at the end, as we split ourselves in some of these tab distribution and relief efforts, these are the key leaders that played a very important role. This is Brother Tony, the one and only Tzu Chi commissioners who help us also in mobilizing especially local Chinese volunteers and help us in many of the government offices coordinations. This is Sister Carolina, my better half, who's been so helpful also in doing this documentation and providing timely reports back there to Manila and Taiwan headquarters. So we required our local volunteers. We said we are from Manila, so we don't have much resources. If we'd like to cover about 50 barangays, so basically at the end it's about 49 barangays, but we only chose at the end 42 barangays. So barangays is considered one of the smallest local unit from the government. We told them that you'd have to provide your own resources. Don't expect these things from Tzu Chi. You'd have to come up with your own transport materials to bring you over. And at the end, more than 170 volunteers split themselves into 29 groups to cover 49 barangays in 6 cities or towns. In one day, we were able to finish all these ocular and home visits. They are tasked to gather and assess the impact of disaster in each area and gather data of the affected families, and of course, it is their task to help furnish master lists for the relief distributions. So I told them also, it's your task. So you don't bring the papers back to us. You're the one to help identify and look for people, help us encode all these stuff, because we cannot do this all alone. So it's quite difficult here in the Philippines because we don't have national IDs, and government, city government or municipal government cannot provide you with exact names. We'd have to go through more details, going through in every level of barangays to gather these informations and to furnish with the required based on the required columns, the required setups for our master list. So it's intended for us to identify the beneficiaries who will be getting our aid. So at the end, we felt that the effort has been very promising as we go through all this stuff. These 29 groups of people who went out for these home visits, they came back, as many of them are first-timers to join such missions. Say, for example, this Sister Annalyn in Circle, she told us she brought 2 of his son and the cousin to join two of her sons to join in this relief effort, ocular visits and home visits. As they finish that home visit during that time, they are required to come back and report to us what they saw and provide us some updates. During my interview, know what they say. As I asked the two young people, only in their 20s, two big guy, and I've been asking, how's your experience? You know, just by mentioning how is it, both of their eyes, they're really teary-eyed already in recalling the situation, because they said they grew up in Tabaco. These areas are quite near to them, but they never get to have such experience going deep into their community, experiencing the suffering of people. So, and they're very, of course, they're very much grateful for this experience, and they're quite happy. So all these volunteers never gave up ever since the first day they joined us. They were never absent in the continuous mission that came along. Another one is Sister Anna. So she brought her daughter. She says her daughter has been very traumatized as the typhoon ripped apart. I think it's their roof, ripped a part of their roof during the onslaught of typhoon. So the daughter has been very much traumatized, not wanting to go out of her home up until Tzu Chi came. The mother invited her, maybe you'd like to join us in our home visits. So the daughter so joined us. So, and she was very inspired. And later on, she realized that compared to her situation at home, there are many out there who are in dire needs, much difficult situation, needing their aid. So once again, these are some of the volunteers, very young, who join us and find value in service. So making our relief efforts much worthwhile. And of course, it's worthy for our volunteers here in Manila. All who stayed to join us has been very helpful, as these are people. At the end, aside from the 29 group, after we finish the master list, we gather our people all together and split ourselves in 4 groups to do these stuff distributions. Early in the morning, whether it's under the scorching heat of the sun up until in sundown. So when lights are off and we'd have to lit ourselves with cell phone lights or flashlights. So we try to make sure that everyone in the list will be able to claim their stubs. So we go through the announcements of names and providing all these stuff. So it's a tedious work and basically a difficult scenario, but we ensure that everyone in the list would be able to get their names, get their stubs. So and it's basically with all these volunteers coming together and with all this experience, we tried to cover about 20,000, close to about 20,000 families in only about 2 days time, November 19 and 20, because we promised the master that we make this swift. So as we can carrying on, we try to split ourselves as much as possible. So, and we're grateful that the local volunteers heeded to our request to join us, and more and more people pitch in to help us. So, and finally on November 21 and 22, we carried on with 2 days relief distribution program. So this relief distribution program is quite interesting because only a certain number of people. So during our staff distribution, I mentioned. So these are the relief distribution family card that we gave these people. So basically, the people doesn't know what these stuffs are all about. They only thought that we're coming in with grocery goods, several kilos of rice, like that. So they're not certain basically what we're up to. So we don't want to mention that we're coming up with cash assistance because for the safety of all our volunteers, we avoided mentioning that we're having cash assistance because people will think differently if there's cash. So we just let them know that we are there to kindly help them, and hopefully it will be helpful to their families. Then at the end, on November 21 and 22, we carried on with the relief distribution. In fact, only a handful of people were able to have, so the only areas that are affected by the Lahar mud flow, wherein many of them are still staying in evacuations areas, we're able to be provided with blankets and the collapsible beds. Many, we didn't provide any goods at all because after Typhoon Vamco came, the second typhoon which hit land, so the relief supply line is affected, and goods that should come over to site will be very much affected. So it's another wisdom of the master advising us that instead of providing goods, why not let's just provide cash? Aside from basically we'll be providing 15,000 to ranging from 15,000, 20,000 to 25,000 cash assistance for these people. And the master has been so kind, mentioning that supposedly we have to have another grocery goods for these people. But since grocery cannot comes anymore, maybe let's just convert it to cash. So another 3,000 was given to them. So at the end, in this Bicol Albay area, they were given 18,000, 23,000, and 28,000 pesos. So during that time, as we started mentioning what we're up to, what we're giving them, the reaction has been very wild, and people has basically screams with Panthers Club. So let's see some of this video for us to have this little idea. So you get to see how people get to scream with happiness. So you get to observe, aside from that, that joy, many of them are very much teary-eyed. This is the same scene. I just use another scene we get from the Manila area. So 2 stamps, no? So because we mark them according to stamp, no? So 2 stamp, and finally 3 stamps will be able to have 25,000 pesos like that. Yeah. So and people are really teary-eyed during that time. And a while ago, I mentioned last time I went back to Taiwan. I mentioned to our master. So it's very funny because during that time, we are required, especially in this pandemic, to have this social distancing like that. So, but people are so jubilant that they forgot about social distancing. So they just want to hug you and as much as possible come close to you and say thank you. So this is a scene, and right after I went back to Manila, I have another rapid test to make sure that I'm not hit by COVID. But during that time, I shared with our master one thing. Well, of course, we are also afraid of this COVID, but I always pray that since we'll be doing this operation, and I made vow to our master. I said, during this time of darkness, I vowed to be a candle in the dark, hopefully to shed some light to these people. And I already prepared myself on the worst scenario. If ever I'll be hit with COVID, at least during that time, I'd be able to help tens of thousands of families. And I prayed every day. I do this prayer, and I shared this with the master, and the master has been quite happy. So I told the master that whenever I go out, because I've been vegetarian for more than 27 years already, but I knew before that maybe we ate meat. So the master has been mentioning that it's incurring negative karma for the lives that we took and the beings that we hurt. So I've been very repentful every day, and I've been asking for all these who are seeking for their life death me. I prayed and asked them, maybe join me in this relief mission. Allow me to share this merit with everyone. So allow me to finish this mission. Let's share this merit all together for us to be uplifted and liberate ourselves from all our afflictions. This is what I prayed every day. And the master said to me during that time, this is Sing Yen Sing. This is basically faith, vow, and action. And also that is being applied to our lives. So as you get to see, so in a short span of only 16 days, 2 weeks and 2 days, we are able to cover 3 major areas for cash and cash forward clearing. So more than 6,000 man days of people. And we even provided hot meals for more than 17,000 people because we provided that for the whole family. And cash relief aid for close to about 20,000 families. That's during the Albay area. And then after that, even Dr. Joanne, who's our team of doctors, after that relief mission, she shared to us in her sharing. She said during that disaster, because one of their glass door was shattered during the typhoon. That moment, she prayed deeply, hoping that the light of Tzu Chi will shine, because she believes after her visit to Taiwan for several years ago, she said she reflected that only the great love of Tzu Chi can heal the pain of the victims. So this is our closing photo. No, so after our relief mission, it's quite interesting because during our relief, people doesn't get anything. It's basically positive inspiration. It's basically a spreading seeds of love program with sharing songs like One Family, letting them know the instructions. Because after that, they'll be presenting that based on the stub, bringing it over to the assigned designated banks. And we allowed, as we coordinated this in advance with the banks, and allowed them to go to the banks and claim their cash assistance from the banks. Now, so we're grateful that the bank has been supportive also for this mission, and people queue in perfect, patiently and perfect order. And the bank, we're given them probably 4 or 5 days, so to distribute all this cash assistance. So every time we went through the bank to visit these people, everyone are all smiles, witnessing all these things. And some of these heartwarming message that they say that we may not be able to see you next time, but this financial aid has been so great help. So you brought us so much inspiration. So teaching us how to be helpful to one another. So the compassion that you showed, a constant kindness, brought tears to people's eyes. And hopefully next time when we get to meet each other, so we'll be volunteers already. So aside from this one, after that, as I came back from Manila, here's a last video I'd like to share, because after we carried on with this relief mission, we immediately went back to Manila because we know that Metro Manila is affected by Typhoon Bangko. During our meeting with our master, I offered that if the master needed us to come back to Manila, because supposedly we were intending to travel to another area out of the Bicol area that we'd have to travel by boat. But since Metro Manila is hit much harder, we advise our master. We asked our master for her advice if it's time for us to go back to Manila and pull our resources all back together to help in the Manila effort. So we're grateful that as I came back because of the experience back there in the Albay area, our executive group, so our CEO, deputy CEO, appointed me to take on this mission once again. And this time, aside from the 20,000 people affected back there in the Bicol area, here's another close to about 40,000 families affected by this disaster, the flooding. As I came back, we started coordinating with governments, and during those time, since we have this close coordination with local volunteers, as during the Typhoon Ketsana way back in 2009, we are very much engaged. The master has been mentioning that we have to be extensive with our great love with these people. So we've maintained this gathering. So after we started inviting, we only gave them 2 days, and we were able to build up about 10, 11 groups of local Filipino volunteers. We just have to match in with Chinese volunteers who are willing to take on this mission. And at the end, we were able to organize 14 groups of volunteers. Back there in Bicol, we were in Albay, we were only able to organize 4 groups because of limited manpower. But back here in Manila, since most of our manpowers are here, it's just a matter of inspiring. So that's why the master has been teaching us that we always have to have faith in ourselves that our intention is pure, and faith in others that everyone has the kind heart waiting to be awakened. So we in short span of days, we were able to gather more than 300 volunteers. We organized 14 groups of people to carry on 2 days of stub distributions once again, and another 2 days of release distribution. We were able to cover these relief missions, and within these 2 months, we were able to provide aid to close to about 60,000 families. And something that we are really grateful, and something that's really meaningful. So here's a video message, a closing video to do some recap of our effort back here in Manila. Sorry, it's in Chinese. We're explaining to the people that the master has been mentioning that drops of waters make a river. So grains of rice make a basket of rice. So everyone's of effort, we can also help people who are very much in need, because it's just common that at times we get to miss out people who are not in the list but who are also affected. So every time we inspired people to gather their contribution to help back Tzu Chi and help others much in return. So many homeowners association gathered themselves and offered to help more. So they mobilize their local people, their local community. So these
Michael,
are
we are not hearing the video.
beneficiaries who used to receive our aid. So, and it becomes a very beautiful Christmas activity to them because these gathered funds were able to be given back to people who were missed out in our master list, who were not given such aid, but who are very much deserving. So it's a cycle of goodness that has been going around. And up until now, as we know, I saw a recent report that during those time, this fund that were gathered back from the beneficiaries who were given aid, we were able to gather about 1.5 million pesos, which is close to about 900,000 Taiwan dollar.
抛出了一个发问球，能获得什么回响？很多受助居民在领慈济发放券的现场就一一投竹筒，还有屋主协会的会长带来几张签合收据，让志工相当讶异。
aming mga membro ay nagpapasalamat po sa pusang loob na nagbigay sa ating mga kasamahan na hindi po nakapunta at hindi po kilala ng magbigay.
这是灾民自发性捐出部分刚领到的慈济祝福金，包含在40多个街区募集，也在脸书号召耶诞传爱活动，总计募到了上百万菲币，再把这些善款分送给640户家庭。
Kahit paano po, ang aming pong pastor ay nabuhay. Maraming pong salamat sa Tzu Chi Foundation.
So basically, more or less, that's it. The idea is so on final words. No, so once again, I'd like to say thank you for giving me this opportunity. I've been always reminded to be a candle in the dark. So the master has reminded us during that time, those critical times, saying one of those critical words, saying that for these people to be blessed, or I mean, these disaster victims to be blessed or not, now lies in the hands of you people. The world has been going through much disasters, much changes. All the more we need volunteers, bodhisattvas, to be inspired within. So adhering to the beautiful teachings of masters, serving as a guide, and hopefully to inspire the innermost capacity so that we'd be able to share with the people and help the needy. So once again, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for giving this moment to share with everyone the efforts of Tzu Chi Philippines. And once again, I knew many of you out there has been part of these relief efforts in contributing your funds and helping us to go through the most difficult times of our time last year. Thank you very much.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Auspicious greeting to all the living Bodhisattva, or all the who are now on the internet. And thank you for Brother Michael, who give us such a very touchful and moving sharing regarding what our volunteers have been done over the past year in Philippines, regardless of the pandemic and the natural disaster who already bring a very massive disasters to this country. But I think, as I heard you mentioned that you vow to be like a candle, which can light up the dark. I think this is remind our masters mentioned that I think you have already done a good job, and I can see the causes and conditions that in your heart the coming law of causes and conditions, you already can see the fruit of the result is already show that through the sharing that you mentioned just now. For those recipients or the people who get the benefit or get the assistance help from our foundation, they already have a kind heart to repay back to their own local society. So, and through the whole years, I think as you know, our Tzu Chi volunteers in Philippines who are work tirelessly all year long to help those affected. Within, just I mentioned the pandemic or the natural disaster. They mentioned all the last year, January, starting with the eruption of the volcano, you do the disasters relief distribution. And bring up to until this year in the beginning, which is also having a devastating of a typhoon in certain areas, and which I think you also have already trying, you know, to communicate with the government to help those needy people. So finally, I think just I want to use our masters with our dear masters guidance, and she did mention and she also encouraged our Philippine volunteers that everyone who has the capacity to help others, but not to provide only the material help. But you guys also inspire those needy people with inspiring their spiritual wealth of love and compassion and the kindness that those who are suffering, and you inspire them to have a heart of gratitude, and yet they are not the poorest as they think, but they still can, you know, do some donating and give it back to the local society. This is what you already have done, and I can see there's you know, a candle with a single layer light of candle, but by your all team who are cooperate together and pull the strength together with our local volunteers, and not just the Chinese or, you know, the Filipinos, the native people. I believe very soon, yeah, definitely the disaster, the natural disaster or the man-made disaster will be reduced, or to mitigate all those things will happen in the future. And I hope that it will bring more prosperities and bless to this country and the people, and helping keep doing this good work. Yeah. So thank you, and I hope that everyone, you know, pray for this pandemic can be quickly as soon as possible, so that everyone can come back to our spiritual home and to see our master again. Thank you, and thank you. I'll pass it back over to our host, Sister Xiaojing. I think maybe she have something to say, or anyone who want to give the feedback regarding our brother Michael. Thank you.
感恩德皇师父，感恩 for the great advice， 感恩师父感恩 Brother Michael for today most insightful session. Indeed, the wisdom for the disaster survival to be blessed, or not now lays in the hands of you few people. Wow, that was so powerful and very touching. In midst of COVID disasters, it is really to see how the Tzu Chi volunteers are doing it. It's truly very grateful. Brother Great Vows as the candle in the darkness serve also another great reminder to us. Very 感恩 for guiding us the way, and 感恩黄师傅的黄师傅 for despite the very busy schedule still come and guide us. 感恩 to all the brothers and sisters for lots of heartfelt and your great support today. Hope that each of us could sustain the Dharma joy and take in another piece of Dharma Master and Hualien love to our life.